Welcome to another episode of the Flats Nation podcast. And a big shout out to Brother Dave Fader down in Amarada for the awesome music. You can check out more of Dave's phenomenal work on davidfader.com. This is your host Dave Legier, and today we've got a pretty awesome guest with us. We have Al Perkinson, who is the founder and CEO of Bajio Sunglasses, and he's been in the outdoor industry for quite a few years. Used to be with Costa Sunglasses, and he's now started Bajio. And the company format is very interesting as far as the way that they are so involved with different conservation efforts and stuff. So I've really been looking forward to having this conversation with Al and going over those different aspects of the company, its founding, and the technology that they're employing. Al, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Welcome aboard. How are you this morning?
Doing great, Dave. Thanks for having me. It's
Thank
good to
you,
be here.
Give me a brief history on Al outside of work.
Al outside of work. Well, my wife tells me there is no Al outside of work. I just
Awesome
time. But no, I mean, I grew up in North Carolina. Primarily, we moved around quite a bit. But yeah, I grew up hitting the suburban creeks and fields and stuff as a kid, and kind of got hooked on the outdoors growing up. And, we'd head to the beach every summer and fish. And so that was kind of, and I had three brothers, so we were always getting into all sorts of trouble outdoors.
Oh, I bet.
And, but super fun. And yeah. And like I said, we moved around quite a bit and ended up in New York for grad school, and had kind of an interesting, or maybe a different path on the education side. I actually was an art major in college. I majored in sculpture. Yeah, in sculpture, and then went to grad school for arts management. So it was sort of a combination of business and the arts, and sort of used that throughout my career to try to do creative things within the business world. And so that's ended up being really, the perfect training. I worked in advertising for a while, and eventually I got Costa Sunglasses as a client of mine back in probably 2000 or something like that. And eventually they asked me to come over and join full time. And it was just a little company, about $6 million in Florida at the time. And then over the next almost 20 years, we grew it to be quite a force. And I think, the biggest thing was, kind of following the Patagonia model and some other companies. I'd worked on American Express, and they had a cause-based marketing type of program there.
Right.
I was a big fan of Patagonia. And so we crafted that Costa brand to be a brand that gave back and was really plugged into the community. And so that was a good run, but left there, and when I saw the big guys were buying it, and it was not the little company I used to love, so
right,
moved out west for a few years, and then came back and started Bajio.
Interesting. I heard about some of your passions in the outdoors world. I hear you're a fly fishing junkie. How long have you been fly fishing, and what do you like to do, fresh or saltwater? Which one's your favorite?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely fly fishing is my passion, and I love both. We lived in Bozeman, Montana for a couple of years, and so we were right on the Gallatin River, and so we just wet waded all summer long, my wife and I, and it's an underrated river. I mean, the fishing on that river is just incredible. And in the whole time we lived there, we saw one other angler on that river. We just had this stretch that was from our house. It was farmland for 5 or 6 miles down the river. And so nobody fished it. And it was, when I told my buddies in Bozeman about it, they're like, do not tell anybody.
That's right. Don't say anything.
Don't say anything. And, but yeah, so I love freshwater fly fishing and fish tons of rivers out west for sure. But saltwater is definitely number one for me. Permit, I'm sort of a permit addict, and tarpon and bonefish and kudas, man. I love fishing for kudas on the flats.
They're a blast.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of our main thing. And when we started Bajio, that was part of it, was just to say, we asked ourselves, what are we most passionate about? And it was the flats. And so we said, well, let's build a brand around fishing the flats and protecting the flats.
Right.
And we will wake up every morning doing what we love. So that's what we did.
So you still like freshwater fishing. So the bonefish and the tarpon and the permit, they haven't exercised all the freshwater species out of you yet, correct?
No, not at all, man. We love to do all kinds of fishing. I love bass fishing, and I still fish primarily with a fly rod,
right,
and little poppers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll chunk a spin caster or whatever. So I think there's not a single kind of fishing that we don't still enjoy.
Yeah, you're like me. I'm just out there to pick a fight.
Yeah.
And have a good time. So now, do you find time in your busy schedule to tie your own flies? And do you have a vise next to your desk at work? Or it's just, you just don't have time for that now, and I'm lucky to grab a rod and get a chance to just go fishing?
Yeah, I've just never gotten into fly tying. I wish I had, and I'm sure when I get a little bit older and have more time, and I can see myself retiring on a beach somewhere and just tying my own flies all day long.
I heard that. I would just think with your art background that would be, it would definitely have some appeal to you, and especially in the last, I'm going to say 20 years or so, maybe a little bit longer. Some of these flies that these guys are tying now, you look at them, it looks like a pilchard or something. It's just phenomenal. The three-dimensional effect and the accuracy that they have in making some of these flies just look like the prey species. It's blows me away at times.
Yeah, they're beautiful. A lot of them just want to frame and put on the wall.
That's right. Yeah, I don't want to fish with it.
That's right. But no, that's probably the one aspect. I've got a vise. I've tied some flies, but I also am like, my fingers just feel like they're fat, and I'm not really good at that little tiny detail sort of stuff. So.
Well, as we were talking about earlier, our eyes aren't getting any younger. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And I'm going to circle back on this a little bit later because I want to do this in pieces. But I know that you were heavily involved with some conservation groups with past different ventures that you were with Costa and others. So what conservation groups were you affiliated with then? And then I want to connect that to what Bajio is doing now. And what efforts did you see from that improve those ecosystems? Because I'm not really familiar with all the conservation groups that you were affiliated with naturally.
Yeah, I don't know, there've been a lot. I've been on the board of a lot of these groups, and just member of these groups as well. But
right.
OSearch was certainly one. Chris Fisher's organization, and I was on the board of that for a while, and sort of helped Chris get it started. He's a good friend of mine, and the apex predator is just vital to the whole ecosystem.
Sure.
And that's what the shark is. And sharks have been, the subject of the victim of shark finning by a bunch of Asian countries who use shark fin soup. And we've seen firsthand in our travels these guys harvesting sharks and just cutting off the fins and throwing them back in.
It's waste, total waste.
Yeah, some estimates are 80 to 90% of the sharks have been killed through shark finning, and and when they do, that whole ecosystem collapses because the things that they keep in check sort of blow up. Right. And
That's right.
And I've seen a lot of progress made with sharks, the great white sharks. And I love what Chris has done in terms of making all the research public. So, it's funny in the conservation world, so many groups are very protective and proprietary. Scientists are, organizations are, and so they're almost closed to the outside. And they want to protect their proprietary research so they can raise more money and so on and so forth. So I think if we all opened up and shared more, that we would learn more and be able to do more. So, Chris does that, which is great. I was also worked with CCA, has an organization that's just focused on habitat. And worked with them and Pat Murray for many years. And Pat's a good friend. I'm on the board still of Trout Unlimited. And I think probably more than any group, they have figured out how to be effective. And they are great at forming coalitions and looking at ecosystems and looking at them holistically.
Right.
Because, an ecosystem, if you think about a river, how many places it runs through and how many different types of habitat it runs through, whether it's a farm with cows, that's the waste is going into the river, or it's a factory that's dumping bad water, or it's a city that just gets a lot of activity and maybe trash. So rivers, you have to be very collaborative if you're going to affect a river, because there's so many people involved and so many people depend on it. So TU does an amazing job there. And, over the years, we helped build the Five Rivers program, and that's turned out to be a real successful program for them. And that's college fishing clubs. And I think there's probably over 130 of those at colleges across the country now.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it had grown to that level.
Yeah. We, TU was trying to do college fishing, sort of college TU clubs. And the kids just weren't really into, the traditional TU club. Right. So we suggested that they just make them fishing clubs and just make them all about fishing and get the kids stoked on fishing. And we paid to hire somebody full time to work at TU just to manage that program. And it just kind of blew up. They did a really good job on it. And so it's, like I said, I think at over 130 schools now, which is terrific. Bonefish Tarpon Trust, I'm on the board of that as well. And, that's right at the heart of flats conservation. And I've actually, the executive director, Jim McDuffie, I asked him to join our board, because I wanted the voice of flats conservation on our board.
Right.
And so he's one of 3 outside board members that we have. And but I love the work that they've done. Super effective. They've really, over the last 10 years, taken it to another level and are just doing a terrific job, primarily in the Keys, but they're starting to expand over to Mexico and Belize as well. And I think there's potential to hit the flats all over the world. There's just no organization like BTT anywhere else.
Well, I see they're also doing quite a bit of work in the Bahamas.
They are. The whole mangrove restoration project in the Bahamas is going great. So yeah, big fan of them. There was also another group that was sort of all the conservation groups came together and had a council. So I was involved with them in Washington. Super effective lobbying group there. They've changed their name, and I can't remember what the name is at this point. But so anyway, there's just a ton of groups that we've always supported, and so we'll continue to do that at Bajio. But I think it's also important to pick a lane and kind of do something new and different,
right?
And really focus on not just sponsoring, but also focus on doing. And so that's what we try to do.
Well, we've come a long way since you and I were kids, and rivers have caught on fire, and people are fishing in those rivers again, which is just a great story. What do you feel? And we'll limit this just to flats fishing. Big picture wise, needs the most attention right now.
Well, it varies by, where you are, whether it's the United States or it's Mexico or Belize or Bahamas or wherever. Each place has different issues that they're facing. If you had to lump a lot of these issues together, it would be habitat degradation is certainly a big one. The mangroves are getting knocked down so people can build vacation homes. Grass flats are getting destroyed so people can have a nice white sandy beach in front of their key down in Belize. Ocean trash is washing up. Sargassum is a big problem, probably caused by the destruction of the Brazilian rainforest and all the fertilizer that causes these huge blooms, and they just float up. And, in Ixcalac in Mexico, for example, they've probably got 3 to 4 feet of sargassum that comes up during the season. And some of it's natural, but not that much. And
Right.
it is sort of like the Black Plague, as it descends upon the beach, and it also kills the seagrass, and which is the habitat for all the flat species.
It's true.
And even the fumes from it come up, and the gases that it lets off and kill the mangrove trees. So and then you have people that don't want to fish where the sargassum is, so the fishing gets concentrated more in certain areas, and that further depletes and harms the fishery. So sargassum is a huge problem. Coral reefs, are in danger as well. And so, there's sort of, pick one, but I think it's all around habitat and the impact that humans are having and development is having on the flats. But the other, probably even bigger than that, is just getting the next generation to experience it and care about it.
That's right.
Because unless the people who are using it, unless there's a lot of people using it, they're not going to care about it. And so these days you just need that voice. And so that's one of the things that we're really focused on, is finding an economical way to for young people to enjoy flats fishing and to kind of expand the flats fishing community. It's been a pretty exclusive community. You have these lodges that are whatever, $3, $4, $5, $7,000 a week to fish.
It's a little rich even for my blood.
Yeah, mine too. I mean, how's a college kid going to afford to do that? And then they've plopped these things down, and I'm not like a lodge hater at all. I love fishing in lodges, but they are sort of located on all the best spots, and they don't want them overfished. So we're working on some projects to find an economical way, whether it's DIY fishing or lightly guided fishing, but more economical ways for young people to get turned on to flats fishing. And so that's a big project for us.
Well, and I've made mention of this in several podcasts in the past. I think fly fishing's biggest problem in recruitment of young people to the sport is the cost. I mean, some of these rods and reels are just like, wow, it's just the cost on that. And I think, though, that there is some lower cost options out there, I don't think it's promoted as well. So I understand what you're saying about the lodges catering to and having this exclusivity, and which is kind of short-sighted in my opinion. But I understand exactly about that. Talk to me about IndieFly and whose idea was that, and are you still working with them at Bajio?
Absolutely. I'm on the board of IndieFly. I was the founder and chairman of the board for a few years. And then when I started Bajio, passed the reins over to Oliver White. and Oliver and I started Bajio together, and Matt Schilling is the third one, and he's the executive director. So I started a project in Guyana around arapaima fishing back when I was at Costa, and there was this little village out in the middle of the Guyanese rainforest. I mean, had to get on a plane in Georgetown and fly 2.5 hours over rainforest just to land at a dirt strip, and then get on in a boat and go 3 hours, 4 hours upriver till you finally got to this little village. And a friend of mine invited me to come, and because they had a cool conservation story. And what we found was that there's 22 villages in the Rupununi region of Guyana, and they were doing all sorts of things that were harmful to the environment and really wiping out a lot of the species. The arapaima is sort of way back when, the tarpon and the arapaima were one, and then the tarpon split off and went to saltwater, and the arapaima split off and went to freshwater. So they're obligatory air breathers like tarpon are, but they live in these rivers and oxbow lakes and ponds in the rainforest. And these things can grow to be, 8-10 feet long. And before they got wiped out by the poachers, they have pictures where it would take like 5 or 6 guys to hold one.
Wow.
All lined up, And so anyway, we went back and in the rainforest and fished for arapaima, and the little village was having a hard time because they still needed some income, and
Sure.
tried different things because this village wanted to not poach anymore, not kill the jaguars and not capture all the tropical fish and the birds for the pet stores, and just leave some of these animals for their kids to see. But that's how they made their money, was from poaching. So once they stopped, they're like, well, we don't have any money. And they didn't need a lot, but, kids need to go to the dentist and go to the doctor and emergency.
Still got to generate revenue. I get it.
Yeah, so you need a little bit. I think they were making the whole village $1,500 a year. So after spending a week there, I was like, man, you guys ought to start a fishing lodge here. This would be incredible. It's just they have that sort of agro. There's something called agro-tourism now, and you can go to see how primitive folks cook and harvest their food and all that kind of stuff. So they had all that there. It's just in the middle of pristine rainforest. So they had all the ingredients, and this fish, the arapaima, was just a trophy, and nobody had ever caught one on fly. So long story short, I invited Oliver to come down, and I was like, man, do you think you can catch one of these on a fly rod? And he was like, I don't know.
Let's give it a whirl.
Give it a whirl. And so we had, anyway, it was a long story I won't bore you with, but it in the end we were able to figure out how to catch arapaima with a fly rod, and to convince the government down there to let us come in and do that. And it was really against Conservation International and World Wildlife Fund and a lot of these bigger groups who were very protective of the indigenous people there, as they should be. But they didn't know about these fishing people and what they were all about. So they tried to keep us out at the beginning, but we were able to talk our way in. And long story short, the village is now making over 120,000 a year in
Wow.
income. 80% is employed in the fishing lodge and everything, and they've turned into huge conservationists and protecting the species. So we thought that was a cool model and decided to take that model to other places around the world and so we started IndieFly as a way to do that. I think Matt was working in Washington at the time. He'd worked in the White House for a while, and Oliver had a couple lodges down in the Bahamas and was doing that full time. And so I asked them if they thought this IndyFly idea would be a good one, and they're like, "Sure, I'll join." So the three of us set off on that adventure, and I don't know, I think we just celebrated 10 years with IndyFly. And the big project right now, in addition to Guyana, we did a project in French Polynesia and one in Africa. But the big one now is actually in the United States on the Wind River Reservation. And that's we've been working there for 5 to 7 years, maybe 7 years, and helping them do the same thing, create sustainable fly fishing businesses that will help the local economy and be consistent with their culture. So
That's awesome.
It's kind of cool. Yeah.
It's really awesome. I'm glad to see that it's grown too. That's really great. And I like that format. I mean, it's a nice setup to be able to help them create a lodge and generate revenue and be conservation minded all at the same time. That's great. It's great.
Yeah, I think the core idea too is that the local people, the indigenous people, own it. We don't own it. So what you're doing is giving them the power of entrepreneurship,
right,
and the sense of ownership, and that is highly motivational. If they're, if you're employing them to work for you and you're an outside company, not as much of that money is going to go back into that community, but also they don't have that sense of ownership.
That's right. They don't have an ownership stake, so they don't.
Right.
The focus and the caring is not necessarily always there.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I see you were affiliated with several outdoor space brands before moving over into the optics targeted area. So as we're starting to move along in the formation and the building of Bajio, what was your best takeaway from those non-optic targeted companies that you're still using for Bajio?
Well, I'm always trying new things and learning from all the groups that I've worked with. I did consulting for a while, and then I did, full-time gigs with a couple of companies. I worked with Sims out in Bozeman,
mm-hmm.
which is, sort of, I would guess, the biggest company within the fly fishing industry. Orvis is big, but not all of Orvis's efforts are in fly fishing. They have wing shooting, they have casual wear and stuff like that.
Just like LL Beam does, they kind of diverge.
Yeah, just like LL Beam. But yeah, I worked with Orvis. I worked with Sims, Hook out of Charleston. Worked with them for a while. Guy Harvey, did some consulting with Guy. He's an amazing guy. And I don't know. I learned different things at each place. I guess I'm sort of like a football coach where they have their system. And when they go to a new place, if Urban Meyer goes from Florida to Ohio State, he's going to still have his same system that he's developed. And so I developed over the years, primarily at Costa, a system, and it's all about community-based marketing and authentic branding. So when I go into a new place, I typically, put those strategies and philosophies into play, and then learn things about each of those that help me tweak and develop, each of those. So, for a guy, my age and generation, e-commerce has been something I've had to spend a lot of time on at each of these places, just learning it, and it's constantly changing. So social media, online marketing and all that is definitely been a big focus of all these adventures. But yeah, I think it's you're always learning, and you have to be open to learning. It's hard because you get, you want to be, set in your ways. It's just the easier path. But to have ambiguity and to have, accommodate change and, adjust your model or adjust your thinking based on new circumstances, I think if you're able to do that and stay open, then you're going to be more successful over time for sure.
Well, we all get into a comfort zone, and the older we get, the more we try to stay in that comfort zone because we have the attitude of, look, been there, done that, know what works, know what doesn't. But as you were saying, in an e-commerce space, it's pretty dynamic. I mean, anything in the IT space is pretty dynamic. So you got to move that comfort zone out and change and look at things differently. I get that. Speaking of Costa, I see you were there for quite some time, and I suspect that their big shakeup in 2019 made a big change in your personal course and speed. And I feel that change, Florida basically lost one of its marquee outdoor brands when they got bought and moved and things of that nature. How did that affect upon you fuel that fire to build Bajio instead of just going back and saying, you know what, I can go work for another Sims or somebody of that nature? What jump started Al to say, I'm going to start my own brand?
Well, I mean, I would say that, I don't know. I've never really thought of myself as a businessman. I mean, I'm not that. I mean, I want to win. I'm very competitive, and, you know, being successful, making money is one of the indicators of success. But I've always been told, you know, profit is not the goal; it's the result.
Sure.
And so, what you need to focus on are those things that will make you profitable, make you successful. But anyway, I think what motivates me is more of a mission-based kind of deal. So I don't know. I have to feel like I'm doing something that's going to help people, or it's going to help the planet, or is just going to have a bigger purpose than making money. Making money does not really motivate me. So when but that's not the case for everybody. And so when I was at Costa, I pretty much had free reign. I was on the management team and developed all the strategies for the brand, from, you know, product to brand to marketing. You know, I influenced all of those strategies, and because they had an impact on the brand.
Sure.
So when I went to Sims, for example, I left Costa because I could see things changing, and I got approached by Sims, and I'm like, you know what the hell? Let's make a change. I've been doing Costa for a long time. I can see where this thing is going. And the Sims guys were like, yeah, come on, man. We want you to, you know, do for us what you did for Costa. But, you know, they were owned by a private equity firm, and, you know, Casey Walsh owned 51%, but Castaneo was the private equity firm, and you know, private equity firms need to be in for 4 or 5 years and then flip it and get out. And
right.
So that was more the mentality there. And what I do, the mission-based type stuff, it's a little bit of a slower build sometimes, but, you know, it looks good from the outside, but folks don't understand all the work that it takes and how the whole company needs to be structured.
Right.
To do that. And so, you know, after I left Sims, and then I went and did some consulting for a while, and I didn't really feel like I owned it enough, you know, and then I went to Hook, and that was its own set of issues there. But, you know, my wife and I were sitting there in 2019, and I just, you know, been through 4 or 5 years of working for different companies, consulting, all that stuff. And I said, you know what? I just think if we are going to do the kind of work that we want to do, that we're going to have to start our own company and have our own brand where we're calling all the shots, and we can do it the way that we want to do it. And she goes, well, I don't know, man. We don't have a lot of money saved up at this
right,
point.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I know the feeling, buddy. I know the feeling.
Was expensive. And even my friends were like, Al, you should just go work for another outdoor brand, be a CEO for somebody. And I'm like, I just can't do it. I'm not going to be motivated. I cannot do it. So we had never started a company before, but I, and I said, and so I wrote a little business plan for the sunglass brand, and right at that time, Luxottica shut down Costa and laid off 300 people, and basically Costa just became a product and not a company anymore.
Right.
And all the people that we knew were let go, and we were in Charleston at the time, and so I wrote a little business plan. Needed to raise money, and luckily I found Randy Parker in Charleston who had done a lot of that, and he wanted to join the team, so pulled Randy in, and he showed me how to raise money. So I went out and started knocking on doors and calling friends and all that kind of stuff. Raised the money that we needed to get it started, and then COVID hit, and everybody was like, "Whoa, putting our checkbooks back in our pocket. Let's wait a few months."
Yeah.
So then we sat there, in the heart of COVID, just locked up in our house for 3 or 4 months in Charleston. And so during that period, I had some consulting gigs going on, but for the most part, we just started like envisioning, kind of dream boarding this brand, and came up with the name, and then just said, hey, what do we want this thing to look like? We wrote it all down, created this book, and then folks decided they were ready to start investing again. So we went back out, raised the money all over again. And then that July, we launched the development phase of the company. And it's been an up and down crazy ride for the last 2 years, but been super fun.
Well, you had the advantage of also pulling some of these people who you used to work with over at Costa. How many of them were you able to pull under the Bajio umbrella when you were making this start?
Well, one of the decisions that we made that I think was a great decision, it was a hard decision because we were pretty happy up in Charleston and, in a nice living situation. Our daughter was in the art school there, but we decided for the business that we really needed to come back to New Smyrna Beach. And we loved New Smyrna Beach when we were here, for 20 years. And so it did feel like going back home, but we wanted to be able to hire the folks that had been laid off by Luxottica to come work for our company, partly because a lot of them were our friends.
Sure.
But also selfishly, they were skilled workers. They knew exactly how to do their job. We didn't have to train them. Day one, boom, they were rocking and rolling. So we found an old race car garage out in the country and got a good deal on it and opened our office here. And initially we shared the space with somebody else, but now we've taken over the whole building. Is 15,000 square feet. And most of the people here either worked with us at Costa or at Sims or at Hook or,
right.
places I've been, sort of, collected really smart people. And everybody's just, everybody's an owner. We give everybody stock in the company. So we have a great culture. We're really making an effort to be diverse and to bring in people from different countries and, different backgrounds. And so we have a very diverse workforce and, one that's just very passionate and super engaged. So it's been a good decision to come back here and bring some old friends back together.
Well, and another sunglass company based in Florida. I'm all about made in Florida. How many employees do you now have at Bajio?
I think we've got about 20. We're adding a couple this week, but I guess we're about 20 here in New Smyrna, and then we have we're still scattered about the country, and these days you can with Zoom and all that, everybody can work remotely.
It's true.
Some folks will probably, so I think we have a total of about 60 all over the country. We have some folks in Charleston and actually up in Toronto, Canada, and Bozeman, Montana. And then we have salespeople in every state. So it's probably around 60 or 70 at this point.
Al, that's just phenomenal growth in 24 months.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just been a year, and it's been like 15 months since we launched in April last year.
Wow. Since Maui Jim, from what my research was telling me, was acquired by a French company back in March of this year, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, this makes Bajio about the only independent premium eyewear brand in the fishing industry, correct?
Yeah, I mean, there are little sunglass brands popping up all over the place. It's been that way for 20 years, but I don't know. I feel like we're not one of those that's just gonna stay small. And so if you're talking of major sunglass brands and put us in that category, yeah, we're the only one. Smith is owned by Saflo, which is an Italian company. Costa and Oakley and Ray-Ban are all owned by Luxottica Essilor, which Essilor is French and Luxottica is Italian, and they merged to create this gigantic thing. And then now you have Maui Jim, which was sort of the last privately held holdout, and they've just been sold to Kering. So yeah, we're it, and it's I think that the ownership structure of a company is incredibly important when it comes to doing cost-based type of stuff, and not just cost-based, externally, but really treating employees the way that they need to be treated and want to be treated, like human beings, and
Amen.
customer service, and so being independent, in the end, I just think it means more pride in the company by the people who are part owners, and more passion. And so they're happier at work, and they come in with ownership mentality. That's great. And then for our retailers and, other people that we're involved with, just dealing with somebody you can pick up the phone and call them and talk to them, and they treat you like a human being and like somebody who's part of your community. I just think that's super important. I mean, not to get too philosophical, but I just believe that our society has gotten so focused on making money and chasing dollars, chasing money, that has become almost like the only narrative that we have. It's like, hey, if somebody's rich, then they must be smart, so let's vote for them for office, or if it creates jobs, then it's automatically good. And sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But I just think, and there's that expression, oh, it's just business. So people have permission to be, treat each other poorly, or, to be assholes if it's a business related type of thing. And, I just don't believe that. I mean, I think businesses are, they're people, it's like our government. Our government is people. It's not like some other thing, that some other organism. It's people. And so when you're independent and privately held, you have the luxury of treating other people like people. And I think folks crave that these days. They're just not getting it from corporate America.
Well, this is true. I mean, I ask the younger generation many times, what's the purpose of a business? And they all say to make money. I go, well, purpose of a business, in my opinion, and the ones that I surround myself with, is to acquire and maintain customers. You do that correctly, you'll make money.
Mm-hmm.
I think and in this market space that you're in, being independent, we all know that saying, big ships turn slow. So having that ability to pivot, make changes, and make adjustments, look how fast Bajio has grown in just the last 15 months. I think that's a big indicator of that. Speaking of that,
you still have to execute the business, all elements of the business. You still have to execute well.
Sure.
because if we want to use the resources of this business to do some good and out in the world, then the business has to be successful. So we have to be
Yes, it does.
really good products that we have to do sales properly. We have to do marketing properly. We have to operate properly. We have to manage our finances properly. So you still have to do all of that stuff. You don't
Due
get a pass.
diligence. That's right.
You don't get a pass on being an excellent business person. But I think it's, there's almost more motivation to get all that stuff right, because you know that that's not just going to return shareholder value. What that's going to do is help make our planet better. So I think when you have highly motivated people, they're going to be more productive, and they're going to be more successful. So that's it's interesting, to have to balance those two things, but you really have to.
Do you handle all the product design work in the Florida headquarters for Bajio?
Yeah, I mean, our VP of product design actually lives in Toronto, but he comes down and he's got a couple of guys that work with him on design. And so Marguerite, my wife, and I, we have a vision and a plan for the overall product line that goes out 3 or 4 years. And so we know from a size standpoint, a style standpoint, a feature standpoint, what we want and how we want it to evolve. And then so we typically do a brief of Denny, our VP of product, and his team, and then we work collaboratively. They go and do the actual sketches and come back, and we look at those and make changes. Then they'll do CAD drawings of all the styles, and then work with the factories in different parts of the world to develop and produce these frames. And then we have the lenses, same kind of process. I mean, I sort of drive the lens development. Marguerite drives the frame development a little bit more. But then those parts all come together here in New Smyrna, and we have a lab downstairs where we cut the lenses, put them in the frames, package everything, and ship it. So that's kind of how it works.
How much of the Bajio product line is U.S. source, and the lens components themselves? I assume you're cutting them in Florida. Where are they actually being produced with the technology that you're employing?
Yeah, we cut them here in Florida, and but really none of our sunglass parts come from the United States. Unfortunately, so many of our industries have just disappeared.
That's true.
And gone overseas. So there's a couple. We would love to produce everything in the United States. But it's just not. We don't have the capability. We have to produce the best in the world, and the best in the world, unfortunately, is not here in the United States right now. We're trying to change that. I mean, I would love to build a frame factory and right next door here and make our own frames, but there's a lot of expertise that goes into these things, and
a lot of capital.
A lot of capital, yeah. I mean, one pair of shades probably cost $100,000 just for one style to do the design work and the molds and all that sort of thing. So it's not cheap, but yeah, we have different frames made at different factories. I think we have 5 or 6 different factories around the world that make our frames, and each one is assigned a frame based on their particular skill set.
Right.
They all use plant-based materials, so all the factories have that in common. And then our lenses are made in Asia, and Asia typically is where the best lenses are made. There's another company in Europe, but they were bought by Luxottica, like most other things have been bought by Luxottica.
Right, exactly. Assimilated. Resistance is futile. I get it.
Yeah, but now we have a terrific, a couple of terrific lens factories that we've worked with in the past and are continuing to work with them at Bajio. And they're just been super willing to try all of our crazy ideas and work with us on testing things and developing some really unique lens technology. So that's kind of how it works. We do have, we started moving a lot of the production closer to home. So we've got our cases are made out of cactus leather out of Mexico, and two brothers started a little cactus leather company, and so we work with them to create our cases. And then we have some hemp bags that are made there as well. And then we have recycled paper boxes and that are made overseas, and then our shipping containers are made in Colorado. So it's a bit of a mix, but I would say most of the stuff is, it's the supply chain these days is made at almost every continent around the country, around the world.
Well, and I was going to ask you about that, Al, with the COVID issues. What supply chain item has been the most difficult one that you've had to face getting those components into your factory? And has that improved any, or are you still fighting those battles?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't even want to think back on that first, last year. I'm trying to launch because I really wanted to launch last spring while we had this opening and this window there. And I just felt like that was the opportunity. And so we ended up, because COVID delayed the start of the business, we ended up with 6 months to build an entire product line, get it made, and launch it. It usually takes 12 to 18 months to do that. And so we condensed it. And then you had factories closing and factories working at not even full staff. A lot of factories converted over to making, masks and other personal protective devices and stuff. Right. And,
I bet.
So, and then the shipping, was a nightmare. So it's hard to single out one thing. Shipping, the cost of that and the availability of planes and boats to get the stuff over here was a huge issue. But somehow all the factories came together. They saw the potential for us, and they were working nights and weekends, and somehow we got it done in 6 months, and we got the thing launched. But the supply chain, it's just constant delays, constantly being behind on things, and the shipping was sort of came on as the last phase, and that's proven to be very expensive, and also difficult from a timing standpoint. I think FedEx is still only offering priority air at this point. So they, and then a container, we were paying $4,000 a container load, and now it's probably between 25 and 30,000.
Wow.
Per container. So, and we haven't passed that on to consumers. We've kept our prices the same, but a lot of people have, and that's causing a lot of the inflation that's going on out there. And we may have to raise prices at some point too, but right now we're trying to hold fast and keep, stay where we are.
And stay competitive. I understand. And from some of the other guests that I've had that the podcast have been product based, they've told me more than once, Dave, supply chain has just totally redefined the words logistical nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we made a great decision early on that we knew that it was going to be a problem. So we hired an expediter, and this company will take possession at the factory and use their own vehicles and planes to get stuff to us. And we have to pay a premium for that.
I bet.
But I think that was the main thing that allowed us to get through it and to get stuff here pretty much on time.
Let's talk technology, which is one of my favorite subjects. When it comes to Bajio Sunglasses product lineup overall, what do you feel is your single biggest key separator from the competition?
Well, it's definitely our lens technology. And, you know, when we first started this, I wasn't sure that we were going to be able to find um, a lens technology that was significantly different from everybody else's. When we were at Costa, we launched 580, and that
Hmm.
was uh, what it does is it filters out certain lights at certain points on the light spectrum. And what that one did was it filtered out yellow light at 580 nanometers on
Right.
the light spectrum. So that's why it was called 580. And when you reduce the amount of yellow light, then your eye sort of relaxes and a lot of the other colors pop, like the reds and the greens. So when you put, glasses like that on, the world looks pretty cool. And so that technology was patented back, I don't know when, early 2000s for Costa. The patent has since expired, and now a lot of other brands have that same sort of color enhancing yellow light blocking technology. So Smith has ChromaPop, and Oakley has something, Maui has something, Spy has their Happy Lens, I think they call it. But all of those lenses are based on technology that's almost 20 years old, and there haven't really been any innovations in lens technology to speak of since then, and none of these big brands really had to. Um, so when we came in and asked the question, what is it? What is new out there? So I reached out to a buddy of mine who was working for a company called Blue Tech, and he said, "Man, the blue light technology is really prevalent in the gaming industry, and because people are looking at their computers all day long, computers, LED lights, all of
Guilty as
those,
charged.
yeah, I mean, they emit this blue light, and that blue light is super harmful to your eyes. It reduces melatonin production, so people can't sleep at night. And so, what all these like intense users of video technology and computers found out was that when they wore blue blocking clear lenses that were blue blocking, they kind of have a yellow tint to them.
Hmm.
That a lot of those health issues went away. But my friend said, nobody has really done that in sunglasses. And guess what? The sun is the largest producer of blue light
That's right.
planet. And so when you're out in the water all day long for 12 days, the same things, it's like staring at your computer screen all day long. And so you have the same health issues, the same lack of sleep, and so forth. So we started messing around with blue light reduction in glasses. And, the other brands, they block a little bit of the blue light up to like, if you look at a little bit of technology, a little bit of science, you have the light spectrum, and different light comes through at different points.
Wavelengths. Right.
Yeah. And so you have blue light is from about 400 to 445 is what we'd call bad blue. And then after that, it's good blue light. So our goal was to block all the bad blue light up to 445 nanometers. The other brands, they're around 410, something like that. And the curve is very steep. So when you get to the closer you get to 445, the higher percentage you're blocking, and the more blue light you're blocking. So we started working on that technology, and now we are able to block 95% of blue light up to 445 nanometers and 100% at 440. So that's we've been real successful with that. And what we found when you take out the blue is everything gets super clear. So from a consumer standpoint, that's what they notice is
Right.
they put them on and they're like, oh my gosh, these are the clearest lenses I've ever worn, because
I can attest to that.
it takes away all that blue blur and all of that just haze, I would call it, takes all that away, and all of a sudden stuff gets super clear. So that I think that's been the biggest change. We have patents pending on that process as well, but that's very different from everybody else, and it's demonstratable. So when somebody's in a store and the way that they sell it, it's like, here, take a pair of Costas, take a pair of Smiths, take a pair of Bajios, walk outside and look through all of them, come back in, tell me which ones you like best. 95% of the time, they buy Bajios. And so when you can demonstrate the benefit, plus there's science behind the benefit, you got a home run. And so we, lucked out and got this blue blocking technology, and it's proven to be the difference maker for us, for sure.
Well, I can attest myself to the clarity, especially when looking at clouds, how much more definition you get by that lens technology. Has Bajio, you're making mention about patents, do you have any IP on that technology that you've applied for, or so that you don't get knocked off?
Yeah, we have patents pending on all of that. So we have a very good IP firm that we've worked with for years, and so they've applied to the patent office for patents. But I'm not like so worried about IP and patented technology. It makes the experience out there a lot better. And so if other folks want to do it, whatever. But we invented it and, pioneered it. And so I think that's enough to hang our hat on, probably.
Sure. And you're getting your lenses out of Asia, correct?
Yes, we get our lenses out of Asia. And, the other part of it, that blue light reduction is a big, is the main thing. But when you build a lens, there's a lot of layers and a lot of combinations of layers that create a lot different experiences for the angler, especially the flats fishermen. And what we've been able to do is experiment a lot with our factories and try a lot of combinations of base lens colors and mirror colors and polarized film colors and coatings and dyes and all of these different things. And we've come up with some really different and proprietary lens color combinations as well. And especially the pink and the purple, the violet, those are really different than anything else out on the market. And primarily it's the combination of all those layers that we put together, but a lot of it is the red color of our base lens. And so what it does is it creates a lot of contrast. And so if you're out on the flats and, you need to see a bonefish or a permit or a tarpon, they're deep down in the water column and you want to see them against the bottom. So you want to contrast the fish to the structure or the bottom that they're swimming on, so they pop and you can see them. And what we found is the more red we have in our base, the higher contrast we get, and the farther into the water column you can see, and the more contrast against the bottom you can have. So
you're looking to cut down the 600 to 650 spectrum. Is that what you're looking to help negate with that lens technology?
No, that's different. We're not filtering out that. It's the actual color of the base lens that we use. Yeah. So you build a lens and it's like a sandwich that you're building.
Right.
And each of the layers does a different thing. And so the base lens is sort of where you start. And you could have most of the blue mirror lenses that you see have a gray base color. Mm-hmm. And then they have a blue mirror on top of that. And then there's, different colors of polarized film that interact with that. And then there's other coatings and dyes that you put on. So you create this sandwich. And so as you look through the sandwich, what you see depends on, the properties, the traits of each of the different layers and how those interact in combination with each other. So we for the pink lens, for example, we started with the red base. And years ago, I don't remember what company it was. It could have been Action Optics, but there was a red base lens that a lot of the trout fishermen used and loved. And then I don't know what happened, but the lens, that red lens, went away. And then copper became, you have amber, which is more of a brown, has a little bit of red in it, and then copper, which has more red in it. And so those were the predominant base lens colors on the market. We decided to go and try red and bring back full red. And when we did that, and then put that in combination with different lens mirror colors and different film colors, then all of a sudden we started getting something really interesting. And so if you throw the blue light technology and you put that on top of, this, we call it the stack,
right?
Combination and the red base and the pink mirror and so forth, man, these things started getting crazy good. And so that's what we've done. And I think the pink lens is just for flats fishermen. You got to try the pink lens. And I think you'll probably be blown away.
How are these layers constructed, Al? Is this put on the top of the glass, or is it sandwiched in between layers of glass? How is that construction technology brought online?
Yeah, it's a different process with plastic and glass. Okay, so glass is a lot harder to work with, and it takes a lot longer to innovate. Because if you think about glass, if you go to a glass factory, it looks like some old school metallurgy type of deal. Guys got lead boots on and these thick vests, and there's molten glass, being melted in these vats, and they dump in all these different chemicals and stuff like that. And so it's a cumbersome process. It's a manual process, and it's one that takes a really long time to do. And you have to do it at volume because they crank up these furnaces to melt this glass. And, it's not a small batch kind of deal. It's a big deal. On the other hand, plastic is all like computer driven. So I will, for example, I will lay out a spectral chart, what we want the behavior of this lens to be on in terms of what type of light we want to block and how much we want to block, how much light we want to let in. Are they going to be a dark lens or a light lens? All these criteria, and then they can simulate it on the computer and then spit out, okay, with all those combinations, boom, here's what your spectral performance chart looks like. And then we tweak it by changing the layers up, and then they make some samples, send over the samples. I get with a couple of fishing guides. We go out on the water. We try different ones.
That's right. Got to do that R&D.
Got to do it. See which ones you like the best, and then pick the winner, and then they go into production. You can't really do that with glass. So we do our innovation with plastic, and then we tell our glass guys, copy this, and that's worked really well. But on to answer your question specifically on the glass lenses, the mirror is sandwiched in between layers of glass, so it can't scratch off. On a plastic lens, it adheres to the outside, and then there's coatings put on over it to protect it and to harden it. So two different processes for each of those.
What about UV, UVC, B, and A? Are you cutting those down in that glass on your Bajio lenses?
Yeah, everything is 100% UV protected, and we never even talk about that because it's almost taken for granted. And polycarbonate, just the material itself blocks UV. So really, you can get a super cheap pair of glasses from CVS and it'll block UV just because the material it's
right.
It's
okay.
But what's different is UV protection. If you see, you go into CVS and you look at the rack of $15 glasses and it says 100% UV blocking, that's through the front of the lens. Okay. But light that comes from the side, that's not counted. And that's can be very damaging, especially if it bounces off the back of the lens and back into your eye. So that 100% UV can go down to like 20% if you factor in that. So in order to make it truly 100% UV blocking, the glasses have to be designed a certain way. And then there's certain coatings that have to be put on the backside of the glasses to prevent that reflection going back into your eye. So when you have an 8 base or a big curve in your lens, in your frames, that by the very nature blocks a lot more of the light.
I would think so, instead of a flat lens like a Wayfarer that's been around since World War II, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And so having the bigger curve definitely helps. And then having them fit to where they just block most of the light, which is what most fishermen want. And then putting side shields on it, or having a fat temple, or we have a new, proprietary sort of technique called sun ledge, which is sort of a hidden sun blocker, but that helps as well. And then you put a backside AR on the back of the lens, and that really eliminates or significantly reduces that light bouncing off the back of the lens into your eye. So a lot of techniques to be truly UV protected. And
I dare say most people are not familiar with that technology or what goes into just making a pair of sunglasses that actually work. Along those lines, how is Bajio's polarization different than other brands? What are you doing there in that realm to help with the optical clarity looking into the water?
Well, the polarization is measured by something called polarized efficiency. And so the higher that number, the stronger the polarization will be. But there's trade-offs between certain colors. You can be at 100%. Other colors, you can't. The standard, in order to call sunglasses polarized, you have to have a polarizing efficiency of at least, I believe it's 85%. Maybe it's a little less than that, but right around 85% polarizing efficiency to be able to claim that this is a polarized lens. So all of our lenses have very high polarizing efficiency. Where that really comes into play is the lighter you get, the harder it is to have a high polarizing efficiency.
Well, I was thinking about that. I would think that if you put a lot of polarization, the lens would be exceptionally dark.
Right. So when you want a low light lens, that you can wear at dawn and dusk, it's really difficult to make that a true polarized lens. So for example, a lot of our competitors have yellow lenses.
Right.
And those yellow lenses are only about 50 to 60% polarizing efficiency. So they technically do not qualify as polarized lenses. Ours are different. Ours are all meet polarizing efficiency standards. And so our pink lens is 16% light transmission. Our purple is 20% light transmission. That means 20% of the visible light comes through. The yellow lenses that are on the market that Costa and some of our other competitors have are 24%. So they're super light, but the polarizing efficiency on those is really low. So we made the decision to keep the polarizing efficiency high, and maybe they're not quite as light as some of the competitors, the yellow lenses, but they're light enough to really work well in low light conditions. And the fact that they're truly polarized, I think, makes up for the difference for sure.
Al, is it possible, because I never see these technologies seem to be going hand in hand, to have a photochromatic lens that automatically adjusts for these light levels so that the average angler wouldn't have to take in consideration a low light condition, and they can keep these glasses on basically all day long, no matter how bright the sun is? Or can you not use photochromatic technology and polarization at the same time?
Yeah, there's a company called Transitions that has a lot of uh, IP on that transition technology, and they were also purchased by Luxottica a few years ago.
Resistance
Uh,
is futile.
and they laid off everybody in the company and just took their technology.
Jeez.
Uh, Another story. The challenge that we've had in I don't know where they are with the polarization on those. It was difficult to do polarization and the transition. They may have made some progress there. I'm not sure. But the thing is that over time, that transition wears out and it doesn't transition anymore. They keep trying to make it last longer, but I think it's maybe around 2 years that it lasts. And,
Oh, interesting.
you may go through a pair of sunglasses and in 2 years, but we have a lifetime warranty on our product, and so if we had a transition lens, we would just be replacing all of our products
Oh,
within 2 years.
yeah.
And it's also there's so many other performance characteristics that we were just talking about with the different stack and the different layers and the blue light technology that it's hard to have everything in one lens. And so
That's true. It's always a trade-off of engineering. Always.
yeah. So I mean, buy two pairs of glasses, buy a green mirror and buy a pink mirror, and you're good, and you don't really need the transition. But yeah, that's kind of where the transition technology is right now, as far as I know.
Talk to me about optical clarity between polycarbonate and a glass lens. How much of a difference is there? I mean, there's a perceived difference. I can see it. It may be because my eyes are a little bit more sensitive than a lot of people's eyes, and I'm also a photographer, so I'm a little bit more looking into detail. But there used to be in the industry seemed to be quite a difference between glass and polycarbonate versions of the same lens. Has that gap closed? How does that come into play nowadays?
Yeah, I think the gap is closed a lot. You measure clarity by Abbey value. It's just a industry term. And so glass is going to have the most clarity as a material. And then different types of plastic have different levels of clarity. So polycarbonate is one of the most clear. Polyurethane, I believe, is the clearest. But the hardness of the lens has an impact on clarity. So glass is obviously harder than plastic.
Right.
And so because it's harder, it's going to be technically more clear, and it's also more scratch resistant. So that's why a lot of anglers pick glass, because of the clarity and also the scratch resistance. The plastic, no matter how much of a coating you put on there, how hard of a coating, it's just the property of the material is just going to scratch more easily. But the clarity is really between plastic and glass with the new plastic lens technology. It's really not noticeable by the naked eye. And, everybody says that it is, but it's really, really not much difference between the two. But what we found is taking away the blue light, filtering that out. That's what really impacts clarity.
Oh, I bet.
That we've seen. But yeah.
What about the two materials when it comes to safety in a fly flying through the air because of an angler on the bow and you're ducking and that type of stuff? What is the safety value between the two?
Yeah, so that's related to the hardness of the material as well. So if a material is softer, it's going to absorb more of an impact. And so any kind of ballistic rated glasses or glasses that you wear in the workplace, all of those are going to be made out of polycarbonate because that's softer and it's going to absorb more of an impact. So definitely the plastic lenses are going to be better at that. However, it's your glass lenses are made kind of like a windshield.
Right.
So that
There's a layer in the center.
it's a layer in the center. So it's never going to shatter, or most likely not going to shatter. And unless you're getting shot in the face with a bullet, the glass lens is going to be plenty in terms of, what you need from impact resistance standpoint. But plastic is impact resistant and glass is scratch resistance. Clarity is about the same, but that's what you're choosing from.
What about those that need prescription sunglasses? How does that process work with Bajio?
It's pretty easy. You go on the website and you upload, pick out what frame and lens color you want, and then you upload your prescription with your PD, your pupil distance number, and we can turn around prescriptions in 1 to 2 weeks. So that's
great.
It's pretty simple. Some people don't have their PD, and so we ask them hold a credit card in front of their face and take a picture and send that instead, and we can calculate based on that. But
that's interesting. I never thought about that. Okay, so just how they focus on it, you can determine that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
What about some other crossover applications for your lens technology other than sunglasses? And you and I have spoken about this in the past. I'm thinking filters for cameras. Have you gotten into that space yet? And what have those test results been?
Well, actually, I have the prototype that you wanted. If you had the video on, I'd show it to you. It's sitting right here at my desk. I need to send it to you. But I don't know. I don't know how it's going to work. The cameras are so digital.
That's true. It's not the human eye. So
you can do all these settings. So I honestly don't know how it's going to turn out, but I'll send it over to you and you can be our first tester on it.
I'd love to test it. I just think that at least from a photographer's standpoint, you can do a lot of editing to a photo with the exception of one thing. You cannot do polarization. That has to be a filter that's physically on the lens. Everything else you can pretty much go into Lightroom and make an adjustment for, whether it's the amount of light volume or even a light volume in one part of the picture, especially if you're shooting a raw picture where you're collecting all the data, not just letting the computer on board the camera make it into a JPEG image. So that was my thinking, because when I put my Bajios on, the first pair that I bought, the green ones, I'm like, this would be great. I never could get them in front of my Nikon lens very well to test it because it's not flat. So it's always gave me an issue there, but I'm really looking forward to testing that. Especially with the newer lenses that I have that have the red base. And I think that the clarity between the two, I like to use the analogy of, and I've done it myself and sent it to family and friends. I'll take the same picture and convert it to black and white. And I go, now look at the clouds. You cut some of the color out, or you cut all the color out. It's amazing how much more definition you can get out of the same picture by moving it to black and white than when it was color. As one of my photography heroes, Clyde Butcher, says, color can blind the eye sometimes because it just the way it blends in. So I'm really interested in giving that a whirl. I'll definitely give you some feedback on that. What about your frame technology? How is it different from the competition?
Well, the thing that we talk about the most is the material that we use in our plastic frames. And we, as a company, we have a goal just to be sustainable and make as little of an impact as we can on the environment, because we make our living off the environment. We fish, and
that's right.
And the flats, especially the flats, are that part that's right next to the land. And so all of the shenanigans, the bad stuff, the waste, the chemicals, whatever,
it hits there first.
It hits there first, right? So we want to just do our part. No big deal. Just do our part to have as little impact as possible. And so with our frames, the frame material that we found is a plant-based material. It's 65% plant-based. There are some other brands that have some frames that are plant-based. I think they're more like 35%. So we cranked it up as high as it would go and still maintain performance at 65%. And that's on every single one of our plastic frames. We are looking at some other types of materials. So there's with that same goal in mind of being sustainable. But for right now, that's us. So I would say that we have a higher percentage of plant than any other brand that we know of right now. And it is 100% across the entire line.
And what is that plant, Al? Is it soybeans? What is the base material that's being used plant-wise?
It's called the castor plant.
Okay, like castor oil.
Like castor oil, and it's grown primarily down in Central and South America, and it's used as a crop that is planted off season from other crops, right, and allows the soil to replenish its nutrients. Mm-hmm. So let's say you're planting corn, and that corn is depleting certain nutrients in the soil. And so, every couple of years you need to, or even in the off season, you need to plant something else that's going to replenish those chemical
nutrients, right,
or whatever. Yeah. And so that's how the castor plant is used. Another plant that's used for that is the coca plant that they make cocaine out of. And so in a lot of cases, the castor plant has replaced the coca plant. And so it's, in a small way, decreased the amount of cocaine that's produced each year. So it has a couple of different benefits to it. But that's the base plant, and they process it and create a resin. And that resin is then combined with nylon to create the material that we use.
What about bamboo? Could you make frames out of bamboo? I mean, that stuff grows like nothing else on the planet. It's just, and it's lightweight. Would it be possible have you thought about making frames out of that material?
Oh, absolutely. We are testing some bamboo materials. Each one comes with pros and cons.
Sure, it's always a trade-off.
We have to maintain the performance, number one. And so another one that we've tested is coconut. And so the coconut, if you think about all the products that have coconut in them, like suntan lotion, mm-hmm, and hair products, and drinks, there's so, if you think about it, there's coconut in a lot of different things. And so the byproduct it's a byproduct, but it's one of the waste in the process is the husk. And That's so right. that husk, they're just piled up in massive piles, or it's burned or whatever. But people are starting to use those husks for different things. We've tried to use it for our frames and have had prototypes made. And unfortunately, for now, it just breaks too easily.
It doesn't have the structural rigidity. I can see that.
Yeah, kind of like when you bend it, it gets kind of white,
mm-hmm,
and then if you bend it all the way, it breaks. So not quite there yet, but definitely working on it.
Just got to get a composite.
Yeah.
Just blend something with it that augments the structural weaknesses that it has.
That's right. And then, the other thing with this is you have the factories that, make the tools and then produce the actual frames. And so a lot of their machinery is has to be tested for different materials. So it's kind of set up for a certain type of material.
Right.
And so then you kind of need, a fair amount of volume in order to introduce a brand new material. And so it's a process, but definitely something we're committed to it and keep working on it. Our product guys love this stuff. So they pretty much know every new material that comes out, and are constantly on the lookout for new stuff.
The Bajio website goes into detail on sustainability, which I think is awesome. Well, how do you, let's say a person wants to get rid of their sunglasses, how much of that is actually recyclable, and what is the recyclable aspect of that? I mean, do they send it into you for you guys to recycle and reuse, or can they take them? Let's say they've busted the lenses out of them, and I know you have a warranty on them, but I'm just thinking outside the box. Can they take a pair of Bajio sunglasses and put them in their recycle bin, and that effectively recycles that material around? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a little tricky. I mean, if folks want to recycle their glasses, they can send to us, and we can separate everything out and recycle them. But the lenses, like we talked about, have all these different layers, and some of those, the glass part of the lens is made from silicone or sand,
right?
So that's completely recyclable. But then you have these layers of polarized film and mirror coatings and stuff like that aren't. When we grind our lenses, we actually have a centrifuge that all the waste goes through, and it separates out the plastic from the sand so that we can recycle both of those separately.
Interesting.
But we don't have that. We can't apply that same technique if somebody sends us their lenses, and we just haven't figured out how to do that yet. The frames themselves really they're completely recyclable. We don't have any wire core in our temples or anything that will prevent that. So it's basically plastic, and folks can throw that in the trash can. And being plant-based, it's gonna, if it does reach a landfill, it's gonna be biodegradable. Not 100%, but more so than just a pure plastic would.
Oh yeah, plastic. This stuff just lasts forever.
Lasts forever. It's like plastic is just the worst. We started a program called Kick Plastic at Costa a long time ago, and everybody's like, "Why are you worried about kicking plastic?" I'm like, have you heard of the 5 gyres, and 80% of our ocean fish are full of plastic and test positive for plastic? I mean, it's a huge problem. So, we've carried over that same idea here. We're doing some trash cleanups. We're eliminating plastic as much as we can. I mean, every other company that we know of uses plastic bags for their T-shirts. We use paper bags, and that means that we have to actually stuff the T-shirts ourselves because
I bet, yeah, there's no way to automate that very well.
No, and but we're doing it. My operations guys were like, "Al, come on, man, we can't stuff all these T-shirts in paper bags. That's ridiculous. Let's just use the plastic ones." And I'm like, "Sorry, man, just figure out a way to do it." So that's
the plastic is recyclable. I mean, lumber rock is a good example of taking post-consumer waste and making a building product of it. So it's just the control of the plastic itself is where the issue seems to lie. And I agree. I don't like walking along the shore and seeing a bunch of grocery bags and everything else there that's going to take 500 years, if not longer, to break down. But it is recyclable, and I can see both sides of that. That's for sure. Yeah. I see that Bajio is now carrying other products, that to augment the sunglass. What are you carrying? I see you had some bamboo clothing. What products are you have in the pipeline, and what do you currently have that would really be appealing to your customer base?
Yeah, I mean, we basically have hats and T-shirts, and then we have some fishing shirts, but we've sold out of those, and have some more ordered. And then we have keepers, accessories, and I think we'll continue to introduce some fun little accessories, maybe some cups and jackets and stuff like that. But it's mainly hats and T-shirts, and those are a way to express our brand and what
Sure.
we're all about. And one of the things that we're doing with our artwork is we're kind of taking a different approach to fish art and using tattoo artists instead of sort of the traditional fish artist.
That's different.
And yeah, it's really cool, man. We've kind of gotten into tattoo art, and if you think about the sailors and the whole nautical tattoo genre, if you will. It's really cool. I mean, some of these things go back hundreds of years, and a lot of these artists are, love to fish. So we're finding tattoo artists who love to fish, and Casey Anderson is a good friend of ours, and so we've used a lot of his artwork in our t-shirts, and we have a couple more coming out pretty soon.
Oh, that's awesome. Where do you secure your bamboo clothing? I mean, is this U.S. based, or are you pulling it in from offshore? Where are you getting that?
Yeah, that comes from offshore, and that's where most of the bamboo grows, is over in Asia, and so that's where most of that fabric comes from. So that's where we get those, and they're just super like soft, and
I love them. They're comfortable,
and they, I wasn't sure how quickly they would dry, so I took some traditional quick dry stuff, and I took our bamboo shirts and just like jumped in the water with both of them on and put the clock on them to see how fast they would dry out. And bamboo was almost as fast as the traditional quick dry stuff. So I was impressed about that.
It's comfortable. I love wearing it.
Yeah.
So now I want to circle back on the conservation effort. So we discussed who you're affiliated with the past. Now, what is Bajio working with, and who are they working with, and how do you feel those efforts have really taken off and gained traction with Bajio?
Well, our big cause is saltwater flats conservation, and that would be everything from the bayous of Louisiana to the salt marshes of Charleston, to the grass flats of Mexico and Belize and all over the world. So, but it's all about inshore, close to shore, flats type stuff. And, a lot of companies now are doing this buy one, give one.
Right.
Tom Hughes probably started that whole trend, like you buy a pair of shoes and they'll give a pair of shoes to somebody who needs them over in Africa or Asia or wherever. And then that's kind of been copied by a lot of different brands, that model. We are using that model, to a certain extent, but I really didn't want us to be pigeonholed into one thing, because there's so many different needs out there, and you really need a finer point to be able to address each one of those individually. But so we have our rooster t-shirt and our rooster hat, and when you buy that, then you clean up 10 meters of beach down in Ixtlac, Mexico, and we've hired a team down there to walk the beaches every day and clean up the ocean trash, which is significant in that particular spot. So that's an example of a buy one, give one. We're about to launch a couple of frames that you buy a frame, you'll plant a coral, and we're employing that down in the Mesoamerican reef and off the coast of Mexico as well. So if you buy those, a piece of coral will be planted, and that coral over 5 years grows to about 6 feet square. This really cool lady named Gabby has figured out how to do that, and she and her son and her husband, Bruno's, I think he's 5 or 6 years old, wears a superhero outfit out to the reef to plant coral, and
that's awesome.
He's a cute little guy. But so we're doing those. We'll continue to do more of those, and also support other companies that do. So we did a program with Mang, who plants mangrove trees, and we
very familiar with them.
Yeah, they're awesome. I love Kyle and those guys. Then there's Four Oceans, and you buy a bracelet. They take a pound out of the ocean, pound of ocean trash out of the ocean. And then there's a company out of Charleston that makes oyster shucking equipment, and if you buy one of their oyster shuckers, they'll plant 10 square feet of oyster beds. So they're all of those companies that are involved in doing things that help the flats, we're trying to partner with. But I think our biggest mission is to bring this next generation into saltwater flats fishing and to create economical ways for them to do that. That's the gateway. And if we can get them on the flats, really enjoying fly fishing, conventional, whatever, then ultimately they're going to want to protect it.
That's
and
right. You want to protect what you love.
Protect what you love. And so that's a big focus of ours as well.
Well, maybe we need to trademark that, Al. Protect what you love.
Well, I
Come
think
up with
it would resonate, because
That's right.
True. It's true.
I didn't see it on the website, but does Bajio have a guide program? Because I bet a lot of guides would love to give this technology a try and share it with their clients.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we have our program is called community-based marketing. It's something I developed a long time ago. And we, with each of the fishing communities, we have a community leader, and that person identifies the right pros, the right events, the right causes to be involved in, and also gives us a feedback loop on our product development from the community. So we have a bass community leader, a Western fly, a saltwater community leader, and we'll probably be adding a couple more here before too long. But yeah, I don't know how many pros we have, but I don't know. It's probably 200 or 300 or 400 at this point. We got a lot.
So if a guide wants to get in contact with Bajio to join the guide program, is there a URL or an email address specifically targeted for such, or how does that work?
Yeah, they can just go onto our website and go down to the bottom of the page and fill out an application and send it in. It'll come right here, and our guys will take a look and reach out.
I know my friend Tommy Derringer is very involved with Bajio, and he was instrumental with me in giving him a whirl and testing them. And I know God only knows how many pair of Bajio sunglasses he's got on his Maverick, but that was an interesting story to hear him handing them to respective clients. Then they didn't want to take them off. So that was pretty, and that's why I was interested in the guide program, because I'm sure that there's others out there, flats fishing guides and such like that would love to give this a try for you. But I didn't see it. That's why I was asking.
Yeah. And, they're basically influencers, and they influence other people. And other folks rely on them to tell them what the best technology or the best product is. And so they're really important to spreading the word, and they're at the center of the core. And if those folks don't believe in the product, then, you're kind of dead. So
that's true.
Creating a product that is something that blows the pros away pretty much ensures that it's going to start spreading, and they're going to spread the word for you. And average dudes like us listen to what they have to say. So
well, it's good organic growth for sure, because it's a trusted source, and I think that's what makes a huge difference when it comes to that. So what's in the works that's not top secret, Al, that you've got coming online? Do you have some new frames coming online, different lens technology? What's in the works that everybody is really should be looking forward to and foaming at the mouth to get out onto the market?
Yeah, I mean, we just a lot of it is sunglasses and our apparel. So just new designs on both fronts. And I don't know. I think people get bored just hearing about product stuff, but we have a really cool new collection of fishing sunglasses coming out in 23, so probably 6 months away. But we have prototypes for those, and I'm personally super excited about those.
Oh, great.
And but most of the stuff that once our line is kind of fully built out, which will probably be 24, we'll keep it pretty tight. And then it's, a lot of new t-shirt designs from these artists I was talking about will be coming out. Sure. But really it's what the brand is doing, what we're doing as a company that I think people are more interested in, fishing adventures, conservation efforts, stories about really, people who have really cool stories to tell. A lot of them, in different parts of the United States, different countries. Those are the things that are really entertaining to people. And so I think that's where the big focus will be over time is just doing, telling the stories of the things we're doing with the brand and the company. And that's the most exciting to me. I mean, I love building products and, love building sunglasses and apparel. But, ultimately they're tools and those tools are getting used to do other cool stuff. And that's really exciting.
You were mentioning earlier that Bajio has a lifetime warranty. If somebody has a warranty concern, how do they go about getting in contact with Bajio to have those taken a look at?
Again, they can go onto our website. There's an email address, or they can just call us here. And we're service is just really important to us. And we're not always going to be perfect at it, but our goal is to be perfect. And we would just, I'm working, like we were saying before, if you're running a company, it's a whack-a-mole. There's always stuff that's popping up you have to deal with. And, right now our call volume surges this time of year. So we're having to go out and hire a couple new customer service people, get them trained up. We're revamping our phone service and our phone system. So we're always looking to improve, but service is super important to us. And I would just say that if you're not satisfied, we have real people downstairs, like who sit 50 feet away from me, answering the phone, and they know that they need to treat people right. We're not trying to make money off of repairs. We're just trying to break even on it. But we want people to walk away feeling good about the transaction. So if anybody who's listening ever has difficulty with a repair or a warranty or any other customer service issue, just call me directly. I will take care of it. It's at the very top of my list.
Well, in my opinion, in this market, the gold standard for customer service, and I think kudos really needs to be given to them, is PowerPole. It's amazing. I bought a PowerPole when they first came out, and the support that I got from them over the years, I mean, every single one of my flats boats have had a PowerPole, and God willing, all the ones that I may be lucky enough to get in the future will have one also. And I was just wondering how your warranty operations, if somebody, I dare say your failure rate is probably exceptionally low with the technology that you're employing.
Yeah, but it's a consumer product. We make, we're already making tens of thousands of these. And so things go wrong. They just do. It's more about how you take care of people when they do go wrong. So you want to turn it around quickly. If there is a charge, it needs to be super reasonable. And, just treat people, like I tell my guys, just treat them like they're your brother, call them and just take care of them. And so I didn't want to actually have an official warranty that's written down.
Right.
I just wanted us to take care of people. But our lawyers told us that if we don't write it down, that it basically they will write one for you.
Oh,
and
it's true.
The law kind of takes over.
Yeah.
And so we wrote it down, and it's basically if something goes wrong, it's our fault, manufacturer's defect, whatever, fully covered forever, and we'll just replace it for you or fix it for you, whatever. If it's something you ran over it with your car, we'll try to get you a good deal on repairing it. If we can't repair it and have to replace it, we'll give you a good deal on that. So again, it's a lot of
it's standard warranty terminology: defects in material and workmanship. Outside influence or something you did to it, beating it with a hammer. That's not really a warranty issue at that point, for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of gray area though, and
there is.
Involved in hundreds of conversations with consumers. It's just try to appeal to people better side and just be reasonable. And we ask them to be reasonable with us, and
That's right.
we're reasonable with them. There's always people who aren't, and
Yeah, it's true.
but for the most part, people are pretty cool and they appreciate it.
So what is the best way for customers to find out more about Bajio and pick up a pair of glasses? And what is your mix there? I mean, online, retail, how's that working itself out now for you?
Well, we our retail base grew really quickly, a lot faster than we had planned. So we've got over 700 retailers now.
Wow, already.
And we're actually in 50 countries already. And we're in all the European countries. We're in a lot of South American and Central American countries. And so we're available if somebody wants to go into a retailer and buy. And, we encourage them to do that. They can talk to a real person. They can try them on. Yeah. And our retailers are great partners. And so we encourage them to do that. You can also buy them online. And we have the website where you can buy them. And I don't know what our percentage is. We probably do maybe 15 or 20% of our business on the web at this point.
That's interesting. So the majority of your sales now are retail outlets, which is, for as young as Bajio is kind of surprising. Most companies that I talk to, their online sales are 40 to sometimes over 50% of their total sales volume. So for you to have that large of a difference between the two is amazing.
Yeah, retailers, they're part of the community of fishing, right? And so the retailers lots of times they have their own tournaments, they have their own pros. They're just involved in our community, and they're involved in conservation efforts. So, I just think it's better if we can, partner with them and work with them to market our product. It's a lot easier for people to, talk to somebody and ask them questions.
That's true.
They have to go searching for the info. It's online is super competitive as well. I mean, people are bidding on, they'll bid on your name, they'll bid on terms that you want to bid on. So, all the paid media and all the emails and all that kind of stuff. It's, a lot of folks feel like because you're selling at full retail, that it's a lot more profitable online, and it is more profitable, but not such a huge gap because of the extra expenses that are involved there.
Well, yeah, you have shipping, which is going through the roof.
Totally. Yeah. Shipping's a big factor. But the marketing is just getting so competitive, and it changes every day.
That's
people
true.
are, opting out and unsubscribing on emails. And so it's no cakewalk like it was a few years ago.
No, not at all. So I guess for the best place for them to pick up information is just to go to the website. What is that URL for everybody to be able to review your products?
Yeah, just bajiosunglasses.com. And we have a dealer locator that allows them, to type in their zip code and find a dealer near them as well.
And I dare say that a lot of those retailers they're just tackle shops, correct?
Yeah, we've got tackle shops, we've got surf shops, we've got a lot of surf shops.
Wow.
Yeah, and then we've got like a sunglass specialty store. We have some of those. We have a couple small chains that we're working with. The West Marine, we're in West Marine stores now. Not all of them. We're just doing a test with them.
Right.
But we're in, I think, 20 something West Marines in Florida now.
Well, that's a good sampling.
Yeah, it's good. So we're not doing a lot of big box stuff, but strategically we're doing a few big box as well.
Anything else we missed that you would like to cover with the listeners as to Bajio and what's coming down the pike?
No, I think we probably covered a lot.
No, we did.
I hope we didn't bore people to death, but you know, it's I don't know. I think the biggest thing is, is again using business to do some good, and uh, using it to entice that next generation to come in to our sport. I just think that's incredibly important for the future of flats fishing and all types of fishing, and it's something that is good for kids. I mean, and we're talking high school, college kids primarily, but even younger than that, getting outdoors, getting on the
Amen.
water, it like feeds your soul, and it is so healthy that anything we can all do to make that happen more, I think is time well spent.
Yeah, get unplugged and get outside.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Al, I appreciate you joining us today. It was very informative. It was really interesting to see the key differentiators between Bajio and some of the other competitors out there in the market. I think the listeners are really going to be able to pick up on that. And as I say, just give them a try. Put them on, walk outside and look up. And I think you'll be amazed as to the clarity. For me, it was just my face could just relax. That was the first thing I noticed. I wasn't squinting as much, which is just was big for me personally. But Al, thank you very much for joining us today. I really do appreciate the fact that you took the time, and you'd be amazed. There's a lot of people that in this space really love a deep dive podcast. So I wouldn't be too terribly concerned about the amount of time that we took. Yeah, it's amazing. Some of the podcasts that we've had that were 2 and 3 hours long are the most popular. So it's amazing. But no, thanks again for joining us. I do appreciate it, and definitely looking forward to trying that lens technology out in front of the camera and see how well it works and how well that cuts down on certain light wavelengths for sure. But thanks for joining us. I do appreciate it. Have a great day and give everybody our best, and looking forward to talking to you in the future.
All right. Sounds great, Dave. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you, buddy. Have a great day.
All right. You too.
Well, we hope you enjoyed our show today and found it both educational and entertaining at the same time. If you or your company would like to join the team on Flats Nation for a podcast or other coverage, feel free to drop us a quick note at info@flatsnation.com. And now, here is the rest of the song to run the skiff back home with. Tight lines and God bless.